The silence in deep space was perfect, broken only by the constant chatter of Eliza Reeves. Her voice bounced through the communication systems of Survey Station Gamma, a small mining outpost floating in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. And that's another iron-nickel sample logged. Eliza said to no one in particular as her gloved hands placed a rock into a scanner. Sample 247 today. Maybe I'll break my record. No one answered. No one ever did. Survey Station Gamma was a one-person operation, designed to identify valuable mineral deposits for Earth's Resource Coalition. But Eliza's endless talking and occasional singing filled the emptiness of space around her. Back on Earth, her supervisors had installed special filters in their communication systems. When Eliza wasn't reporting important findings, they could turn down the volume on her never-ending commentary. "She's the best surveyor we have," Director Patil often explained to new staff members. Just a bit talkative, that was an understatement. In her 3 years working solo missions, Eliza had never stopped talking for more than a few minutes while awake. Her personnel file included notes from 5 different psychologists who all reached the same conclusion. Her constant verbalization was how she processed information and managed the stress of isolation. It was also how the Vrexians found her. The alien scout ship had been hiding behind one of Jupiter's moons for weeks, silently collecting Earth's communications. They analyzed television broadcasts, radio signals, internet traffic, and especially the chatter from space outposts. The Vrexians, with their tall, insect-like bodies and complex translator technology, studied humanity carefully before making their move. "This species is primitive," Commander Zexatral told his crew as they gathered around a holographic display of the solar system. His voice was a series of clicks and buzzes translated by the ship's computer. "Their weapons are basic, their spacecraft are slow, and they never stop making noise." The crew clicked their mandibles in agreement. The Vrexian Empire had conquered 17 solar systems already. Their strategy was always the same: study, infiltrate, divide, and conquer. Earth would be system number 18. "We will start with this isolated human," Zextral continued, pointing a long, jointed finger at Station Gamma. "The one that talks, to itself constantly. We will capture it, extract information, then prepare for full invasion." The lieutenant responsible for surveillance made a respectful gesture. "The human demonstrates strange behavior, Commander. It speaks even when no one is listening." "A sign of lower intelligence," said Zextral dismissively. "Their weakness will be our advantage." The Vrexian ship detached from Jupiter's moon and moved silently toward the asteroid belt. Their technology allowed them to travel without detection by Earth's primitive sensors. Within hours, they positioned themselves near Survey Station Gamma. Meanwhile, Eliza was halfway through her daily maintenance routine. "Air filters at 97% efficiency, that's good enough," she hummed as she checked items off her tablet. "Water recycling, power systems, all green. Now let's check what's for dinner. Please not be protein paste again." She floated through the station's narrow corridors, pushing herself along with practiced ease in the microgravity environment. The station was small but well designed, with a central hub connected to laboratory, living quarters, and the airlock section. "Maybe I'll treat myself to the strawberry dessert packet tonight," Eliza continued, talking to herself as she opened a storage compartment. "I've logged enough samples today to deserve a—" The station suddenly shook. Alarms blared. "Emergency." Lights flashed red. "Warning! Unknown vessel approaching, warning!" The station's computer announced in its flat voice. Eliza pushed herself quickly to the control room. "Computer, show me visual," she ordered, her voice steady despite the situation. Years of emergency drills had prepared her for unusual events. What she saw on the screen, however, was beyond any training scenario. A massive ship, at least 20 times the size of her station, had appeared seemingly from nowhere. Its dark, smooth surface reflected no light, and its shape resembled nothing built by human hands. "Oh my God," Eliza whispered. First contact. Her training kicked in. She reached for the emergency communication button. "This is Survey Station Gamma to unknown vessel. I am a peaceful representative of Earth. Please identify yourself and—" She never finished the sentence. A beam of green light shot from the alien ship, enveloping the entire station. Eliza felt a strange tingling sensation, and then everything went dark. When she regained consciousness, Eliza found herself in a large, strange room. The walls pulsed with a faint bluish light. The air smelled wrong. Not dangerous, just alien. She was lying on a flat surface that seemed to adjust to her body weight. Most importantly, she wasn't alone. 3 tall figures stood nearby, watching her. They had segmented bodies, multiple limbs, and large compound eyes that reflected the blue light. Their exoskeletons were a deep purple color with intricate patterns. "Human is conscious," said one of them, the sound somehow translating into English in her mind. "Begin information extraction." Eliza's mind raced. This wasn't a peaceful first contact. This was an abduction. These aliens, whatever they were, had taken her from her station without permission, without warning. For the first time in her adult life, Eliza stopped talking. The aliens noticed immediately. One tilted its head in what might have been confusion. "Human no longer makes noise," it said to the others. Previous observation indicated constant vocalization. Perhaps the translator is malfunctioning? The tallest alien stepped forward. Based on its ornate armor and the way the others deferred to it, Eliza guessed it was their leader. "I am Commander Zexitral of the Vrexian Empire," it announced. "You will provide us with information about Earth's defenses, communication systems, and governmental structure. Cooperate, and you will be treated well. Resist, and you will suffer." Eliza looked at the commander, then at the other aliens. She noticed everything: the layout of the room, the positions of doors, the weapons the aliens carried, the control panels near the walls. She noticed and remembered it all. But she said nothing. "Why does it not speak?" asked one of the smaller aliens. The surveillance indicated it never stops producing sound. "It is afraid," said Zextral confidently. "Good. Fear will make it cooperative." They were wrong. Eliza wasn't afraid, at least not in the way they thought. What they were seeing wasn't fear shutting her down. It was Eliza focusing, observing, planning. The Vrexians left her alone in the room to consider her position, as they put it. They expected her silence to break soon, for the talkative human to beg or plead or at least ask questions. But the human remained silent. And that was the first mistake the aliens made. They should have been very, very worried when Eliza Reeves stopped talking. Back on Earth, in the underground headquarters of the Earth Defense Force, alarms began to sound. Commander Jackson Chen rushed into the monitoring center, still adjusting his uniform. It was 3:17 a.m., but emergencies didn't follow schedules. "Report," he ordered, his voice sharp but calm. A young officer looked up from her screen. "Survey Station Gamma has gone dark, sir. Complete communication blackout for the past 26 hours. "Equipment failure?" Chen asked, though he already suspected it wasn't that simple. The officer shook her head. "Negative, sir. The station's emergency. Beacon should continue functioning even with total power loss and—" She hesitated. "Speak freely, Lieutenant." "It's Eliza Reeves, sir. She's the one stationed there." Chen's expression darkened. Everyone who worked in space operations knew Eliza Reeves, the woman who never stopped talking, who filed her reports while humming, who once narrated an entire 6-hour spacewalk in detail. "How long has she been silent?" Chen asked. 26 hours and 14 minutes, sir." Chen stared at the large display showing the solar system. Survey Station Gamma was a tiny dot in the asteroid belt, now marked with a red warning symbol. "Initiate Lazarus Protocol," Chen said quietly. The room fell silent. The Lazarus Protocol had been developed after the resource wars of 2084 but had never been used. It was designed for one specific scenario. First contact gone wrong. "Sir," another officer spoke up. "Shouldn't we inform the World Council first? Get proper authorization?" Chen shook his head. "By the time they finish their first debate, it could be too late. The protocol gives me 48 hours before mandatory disclosure. By then, I want a team ready." He turned to his communications officer. "And find me everyone who knows Eliza Reeves personally. I want to know what it means when she stops talking." Aboard the Vrexian ship, 3 scientists observed Eliza through invisible sensors. She sat perfectly still on the examination platform, where they had left her. Her vital signs were stable, but her continued silence puzzled them. "The human has not spoken for what would be approximately 1 Earth day," said the chief scientist, whose name translated roughly to Vexilloran. "This contradicts all our observations." Another scientist checked data readings. "Perhaps our scanning technology damaged its vocal capabilities?" "No," said Vexilloran. "Physical examination shows all speech organs intact and functioning. It simply refuses to use them." The third scientist, younger than the others, suggested, "Perhaps we should try different stimuli. Their species seems highly responsive to both threats and rewards." Vexilloran considered this. "Prepare both approaches. We need information about Earth's defenses before the invasion fleet arrives." In her holding cell, Eliza remained motionless, but her mind was racing. Years of talking had been her way of organizing thoughts, processing information. Now, with no words escaping her lips, all that mental energy turned inward. She mentally mapped every corner of the room they kept her in, counted steps between important locations, memorized the patterns of guard rotations, noted which control panels lit up when doors opened. When a new Vrexian entered, she studied its movements, its weapons, the devices attached to its armor. When food was brought, she examined its consistency, temperature, and the container it came in, all without saying a word. The aliens tried speaking to her in different tones. They showed her images of Earth, clearly expecting her to react. When she didn't, they showed destruction of famous landmarks. Still, she remained silent. They didn't understand that her silence wasn't submission. It was concentration. On Earth, Commander Chen met with his hastily assembled team in a secure room. On the wall screen was Eliza's personnel file, including psychological assessments and work history. "Dr. Patel," Chen addressed an older woman with silver hair. "You were Eliza's supervising psychologist before her space deployment. What does her silence mean?" Dr. Patel folded her hands carefully. "Commander, Eliza Reeves uses verbalization as a processing mechanism. It's how she organizes information and manages stress. For her to stop talking completely would require either severe trauma," she paused, "or," Chen prompted, "or a level of focus so intense that she's channeling all cognitive resources to a specific task." A man at the end of the table spoke up. "I worked with Eliza on Mars base. 3 years ago, pirates tried to raid our supply depot. Eliza went quiet for about 4 hours. When she started talking again, she had reprogrammed our defense drones to trap the pirates in an airlock, and Sci leaned forward. "You're saying when she stops talking, she's, planning something?" "I'm saying," the man replied, "that when Eliza Reeves goes silent, someone's about to have a very bad day." Chen nodded slowly. "Then we need to find her. Fast. Not just for her sake." He turned to the rest of the team, a mix of engineers, hackers, and linguistics experts. None of them were soldiers. "I've selected each of you because you have unique skills. We're not mounting a military rescue. We don't know what we're dealing with, so we need creative solutions. You're assuming she's been taken by something. Not human," one of the engineers said cautiously. "Survey Station Gamma had enough supplies for 6 months. Eliza Reeves has been transmitting constant updates every day for the past year. The only thing that would make her go silent is something unprecedented." Chen looked at each team member. "I need you to understand what's at stake. If I'm wrong, we've prepared unnecessarily. If I'm right, we might be facing the greatest threat in human history." Commander Zexitral reviewed the preliminary invasion plans with his officers. Holographic displays showed Earth's major military installations, power grids, and government centers. "The human prisoner remains uncooperative," he told them. "But it doesn't matter. Our scouts have gathered enough data to begin the first wave." His second-in-command made a gesture of concern. "Commander, the science team reports unusual readings from the human. Its brain activity suggests complex calculations rather than fear or confusion." Zexatral dismissed the concern with a wave of his limb. Their species overthinks everything. It's their weakness. They debate and discuss while action is needed. But the silence is meaningless, Zexatral interrupted. One human, unarmed and isolated, poses no threat to our mission. Prepare the scout ships for deployment to their lunar colonies. As the officers dispersed, Zexatral remained studying the hologram of Earth. So much water, so many resources. The 18th jewel in the Vrexian Empire's crown. He didn't notice a small warning light blinking on a nearby console. A minor anomaly in the atmospheric regulation system. A slight change in oxygen levels almost too small to detect. Almost. Back in her cell, Eliza still hadn't spoken a word. But for the first time since her capture, her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. Day 3 of captivity, and Eliza still hadn't spoken a word. The Vrexians had moved her to a larger holding area, one with basic furniture that approximated human needs. They provided food and water that their scans indicated were compatible with human biology. In their reports, they noted her cooperation with basic commands: sit, eat, sleep, but total refusal to communicate verbally or answer questions. What they failed to notice were the small changes in their ship, tiny adjustments to the environmental controls, minor fluctuations in the power grid, things so small that the automated systems corrected them without alerting the crew. The Vrexian guard assigned to watch Eliza found her behavior strange but unthreatening. Humans were supposed to be emotional, talkative creatures. This one just sat quietly, occasionally stretching or pacing the room. Sometimes she would examine her restraints, thin metal bands around her wrists that could be remotely tightened if needed. The guard didn't notice those restraints were slightly looser. Each time he checked on her. The human remains unresponsive, he reported during shift change. No signs of resistance or distress. His replacement clicked his mandibles in acknowledgement. The commander wants results soon. The invasion fleet will arrive in 2 days. Neither noticed Eliza's eyes tracking their movements, counting seconds between shift changes, studying the door mechanisms. On Earth, Commander Chen's team worked around the clock in a repurposed hangar. Engineers modified a small transport ship while hackers analyzed every communication from the asteroid belt over the past month. "We've found something," announced Maya Patel, their lead signals analyst. 3 weeks ago, our deep space scanners picked up an anomaly near Jupiter. It was dismissed as instrument error, but she pulled up the data on the main screen. If we adjust the parameters, it looks like a heat signature, something big, hiding behind Europa. Chen studied the readings. A ship? Can we estimate the size? Based on the thermal output, it's massive, at least 500 meters long. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. How did they hide from our regular scans? Someone finally asked. Advanced technology, Chen answered grimly, which means we're outmatched in a direct confrontation. He turned to the engineering team. How's our transport coming? The chief engineer, an older man named Rodriguez, wiped grease from his hands. We've installed the prototype stealth system. It won't hide us completely, but it should mask our heat signature and radar profile. Good enough for an approach? Chen nodded. What about communications? A young woman stepped forward holding what looked like modified headsets. We've reprogrammed these to operate on frequencies outside standard ranges. If there's an alien ship out there, they're probably monitoring normal channels. Chen picked up one of the headsets. Will they work across the distance from Earth to the asteroid belt? No, she admitted. We'll need relay points. That's the bad news. And the good news? She smiled slightly. If Eliza is still alive and if she has access to any kind of transmitter, we might be able to contact her directly. These operate on mining frequencies, ones she'd recognize. Chen nodded. It wasn't much, but it was a start. How soon can we launch? 24 hours minimum, Rodriguez answered. And that's pushing safety protocols. You have 18, Chen said. I don't think Eliza has more time than that. Aboard. The Vrexian vessel, Commander Zexatral reviewed reports from his scout ships. The small vessels had been dispatched to Earth's moon, observing the human colonies there before the main invasion. Their lunar defenses are minimal, his officer reported, mostly designed for meteor protection, not warfare. Excellent, Zextral replied. We'll take their moon first, then use it as a staging ground. A science officer approached cautiously. Commander, may I speak? What is it? It's about the human prisoner. Our telepathic interrogators report unusual findings. Zextral's compound. Eyes shifted toward the officer. Explain. In most species, stress makes the mind chaotic. Thoughts become disordered, easier to access. But this human, the science officer hesitated. Its thoughts are becoming more organized, more focused. Is it resisting the telepathic scan? Not exactly. It's as if... The officer searched for the right words. It's as if its mind is solving a complex problem. Zextral considered this information. Increase the guard on the prisoner. Use our strongest telepaths. I want answers before the fleet arrives. As the officers dispersed, a junior technician approached a control panel, noting a minor alarm. The oxygen levels on Deck 7 had increased by 2%, within safety parameters, but unusual. The technician reset the system and made a note to check for sensor malfunctions. It was the third such adjustment he'd made that day. In her holding cell, Eliza continued her silence, but her mind was far from quiet. Years of working alone in space had taught her patience and observation. Years of talking to herself had trained her brain to process multiple streams of information. Now, all that mental energy focused on one goal: survival. When the guards brought her food, she noted which doors they used, how many steps to the main corridor. When they adjusted the lights for the ship's night cycle, she watched how they operated the control panels. Most importantly, she discovered something about her restraints. They responded to the Vrexian's body temperature, slightly cooler than human normal. By gradually warming the metal bands with her hands, then quickly cooling them with water from her drinking container, she created tiny imperfections in the locking mechanism. Tonight would be her third sleep cycle on the ship. The guards expected her to follow the same routine: eat, exercise briefly, then sleep. But tonight would be different. As the lights dimmed, Eliza lay on the sleeping platform provided for her. She controlled her breathing, appearing to fall asleep as usual. The guard watched her for a few minutes, then turned his attention to a small device in his hand, something like a tablet. Eliza waited. 1 hour, 2. Her body perfectly still except for the slow rise and fall of her chest. When the guard's attention drifted, just for a moment, she made her move. The restraints, weakened by her careful manipulation, snapped open with a hard twist of her wrists. In one fluid motion, Eliza rolled off the platform and across the floor. Before the guard could react, she had grabbed the water container and flung its contents at the control panel by the door. The effect was immediate. Sparks flew as water hit exposed circuits, a design flaw she had noticed days earlier. The lights flickered, the door slid partially open, and alarms began to sound. The guard reached for his weapon, but Eliza was already moving. With precision born from countless spacewalks in dangerous conditions, she ducked under his arm and slammed her elbow into a spot just below his head, where she had observed a gap in the exoskeleton. The guard staggered back, momentarily stunned. Itwi was enough. Eliza slipped through the half-open door and into the corridor beyond. For the first time in 3 days, she smiled. Phase 1 complete. Still, she didn't say a word. The real work was just beginning. Alarms blared throughout the Vrexian ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and announcements in the aliens' clicking language echoed from hidden speakers. Eliza pressed herself into a small maintenance alcove as guards rushed past. Her heart pounded, but her breathing remained controlled. Working in the vacuum of space had taught her to manage fear with precision. She counted to 30 after the last guard passed, then slipped out and moved in the opposite direction. Her destination wasn't random. During her captivity, she had built a mental map of the ship based on the sounds that traveled through the walls, the subtle vibrations in the floor, and glimpses she caught whenever doors opened. The ship's layout followed patterns she recognized from her engineering training. Power distribution would be central. Life support systems would be redundant and distributed. And communications, her primary target, would likely be near the command center. She needed to find a terminal, any access point to the ship's systems. 2 decks up and 3 sections over, Eliza found what she was looking for, a small maintenance room with glowing control panels. She slipped inside and locked the door behind her. The alien technology was advanced but followed logical principles. Display screens showed what appeared to be system diagnostics. Eliza studied them carefully, looking for patterns in the symbols and colors. Years of reading sensor outputs and calibrating mining equipment helped her identify what she was seeing. Power flows, environmental controls, and most importantly, communication pathways. She began to work. Commander Zextral stormed into the ship's control center, his exoskeleton clicking with each angry step. How does one unarmed human escape secure containment? He demanded. The security chief lowered his head in submission. Unknown, Commander. The restraints were deactivated and the guard was incapacitated. We're searching all decks. Find it before it causes damage, Zextral ordered. Our invasion timeline cannot be disrupted. A technician interrupted with urgent clicks. Commander, we're experiencing anomalies in the life support systems. Oxygen levels are fluctuating across multiple decks. Fix it, Zextral snapped. And check for sabotage. The technician hesitated. Sir, the system shows no physical damage. It appears to be responding to authorized commands, but we can't trace the source. For the first time, Zextral felt a flicker of concern. Lock down all command functions, require authentication for any system changes. Already attempted, sir. Something is bypassing our security protocols. Zextral's compound eyes narrowed. How is that possible? The human couldn't possibly understand our technology. An older officer who had served in 3 previous invasions spoke quietly. Commander, we may have underestimated this species. Their communication patterns suggested simple minds, but perhaps what? Perhaps their constant communication serves a different purpose than we assumed. On Earth, Commander Chen stood in the launch bay, watching final preparations on the modified transport ship. It wasn't much to look at, basically a cargo vessel with experimental stealth technology and enhanced communications. His team of 12 specialists was preparing to board when an urgent call came through. Commander, Maya's voice was tense with excitement. We're picking up a signal from the asteroid belt. It's using an old mining algorithm as a carrier wave. Chen's pulse quickened. Eliza? The pattern matches her personal coding style. It's her. What's she saying? That's just it. It's not a message. It's a continuous data stream. Massive amounts of information. Chen rushed back to the command center. On the main screen, streams of code and diagrams were appearing faster than anyone could process them. What are we looking at? He demanded. One of the engineers pointed to a section of the display. These look like ship schematics, incredibly advanced technology. And these, added a weapons specialist, appear to be shield frequencies and weapons capabilities. Chen stared at the download in amazement. She's sending us everything, their entire technological database. Not just technology, Maya said, pointing to another section. Look, these are tactical plans, invasion coordinates, fleet formations. How is she accessing this information? Maya shook her head in disbelief. I don't know, but if this is accurate, we're looking at plans for a full-scale invasion, starting with our lunar colonies, then proceeding to Earth. Chen made a quick decision. Get this to Defense Command immediately, and prepare the transport for launch. Eliza's alive, and we need to extract her before they realize what she's doing. Back on the Vrexian ship, Eliza worked quickly. The aliens' computer systems were advanced but had a crucial weakness. They were designed for efficiency, not security. The Vrexians had conquered so many worlds with such ease that they'd grown complacent. As she transferred data to Earth using a makeshift transmitter she'd constructed from components in the maintenance room, Eliza also made other changes to the ship's systems. Subtle at first, a door that wouldn't close properly, lights that dimmed unexpectedly. But as alarms indicated her location had been discovered, she abandoned subtlety. With a few final commands, Eliza sealed bulkheads throughout the ship, trapping groups of Rexians in separate sections. She overrode life support to increase oxygen levels in some areas while reducing it in others. The alien physiology she had carefully observed during her captivity was adapted to a specific atmospheric mix. By altering that mix, she wasn't harming them, just making them sluggish, confused, giving herself time to move. As she finished her work and prepared to leave the maintenance room, Eliza allowed herself a small smile, but she still didn't speak. Not yet. She had one more destination in mind. In the command center, chaos reigned. Doors wouldn't respond to override commands. Communication between ship sections was intermittent, and the environmental systems were creating pockets of oxygen-rich atmosphere that made Vrexian thinking slow and unfocused. The human is doing this, Zextral realized with growing anger and fear. But how? It shouldn't understand our technology. Sir, a communications officer called. We're detecting an unauthorized transmission to Earth. Massive data transfer. Zextral froze. Stop it. Shut down all communications. We can't, sir. The systems aren't responding to commands. For the first time in a successful military career, Zextral felt true alarm. This wasn't just an escaped prisoner. This was something unprecedented. Lock down the bridge, he ordered. Security teams to all critical systems. Find the human now. But it was already too late. Eliza moved through the ship with purpose, using her knowledge of the environmental controls to avoid capture. Where Vrexian guards gathered, she would increase the oxygen levels, making them disoriented. Where she needed to pass, she created distractions in other areas. Finally, she reached her destination, the ship's primary communications hub. Larger than the maintenance room she'd used earlier, it contained more advanced equipment. Perfect for what she needed to do next. As she entered, Eliza confronted 3 Vrexian technicians. They reached for weapons but moved slowly in the altered atmosphere. Eliza, adapted to Earth's higher oxygen levels, remained sharp and focused. She disabled them quickly, using techniques developed for zero-gravity combat during the resource wars. Then, for the first time since her capture, Eliza Reeves spoke. Not to the aliens, but into the communications array she had modified to broadcast on Earth frequencies. This is Eliza Reeves, Survey Station Gamma. If anyone's listening. She paused, taking a deep breath. Their quantum communication systems operate on a synchronized frequency. Disrupt the pattern, and their entire fleet loses coordination. I'm sending the exact specifications now. She uploaded the detailed analysis she had compiled while examining their technology. Then, with a few more commands, she did something unexpected. She broadcast a message to the entire Vrexian fleet approaching Earth, using their own language synthesized from the ship's computer. The message was simple. You should have run when I got quiet. The Vrexian invasion fleet approached Earth's orbit, a formation of 30 sleek warships that had brought destruction to 17 other worlds. Their weapons were charged, their soldiers prepared for the glory of conquest. Then, something unexpected happened. Their perfectly synchronized communications began to falter. What is happening? Demanded Fleet Admiral Zex Voss as error messages flashed across his command screens. Why are we losing contact with the scout ships? His communications officer worked frantically at the controls. Unknown, Admiral. The quantum frequencies are being disrupted by some kind of interference. Impossible, Zex Voss said. Our quantum systems are unbreakable, but the evidence was clear. Ship after ship reported communication failures. Battle formations broke as vessels lost coordination with each other. The perfect invasion machine was coming apart. On Earth, humanity was preparing for the invaders, but not in the way the Vrexians expected. At the Luna Defense Station, engineers had quickly adapted Eliza's transmission into a practical defense system. Giant dishes that normally scanned deep space for research purposes were now broadcasting precisely calibrated frequencies to disrupt the alien fleet's communications. In orbit, satellites previously used for weather monitoring and telecommunications had been hastily reprogrammed. Solar mirrors designed to provide energy to Earth's power grids were now angled to focus concentrated light beams on approaching alien vessels. Commander Chen stood in the Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching the screens as humanity's improvised defenses came online. "I still can't believe she did it," said General Santos, who had initially opposed the Lazarus Protocol. "One woman against an entire alien warship." "You don't know Eliza," Chen replied with a slight smile. "When she stops talking, that's when she's most dangerous." The screens showed the alien fleet's formation breaking apart as ships struggled to coordinate without their quantum communications. "Our rescue transport?" Chen asked. "Approaching the Vrexian command ship now," an officer reported. "Stealth systems, holding." Chen nodded. "Let's hope they get to Eliza before the Vrexians realize what she's done." Commander Zextral had finally escaped the sealed bridge of his ship, leading a team of armed guards toward the communications hub. The humans' interference with life support systems had slowed them down, but rage drove the Vrexian commander forward. When they reached the hub, they found the 3 technicians unconscious and the human nowhere in sight. But the damage was done. Screens showed their fleet in disarray and Earth's defenses activating. "Find her!" Zextral ordered, his voice crackling with fury. "Search every compartment, every maintenance shaft." But Eliza was already elsewhere, moving through the ship's ventilation system. Her small human frame, something the Vrexians had seen as a weakness, now allowed her to access areas the larger aliens couldn't reach. She emerged in a secondary control room, startling 2 Vrexian officers. Before they could react, she had sealed the doors and disabled their weapons using the ship's internal security systems. "You should understand something," Eliza said, speaking directly to the aliens for the first time. Her voice was calm, almost conversational after days of silence. "Humans talk a lot because we're constantly processing information. When we go silent, it means all that mental energy has turned inward." The Vrexians didn't respond, but their antennae twitched nervously. "Your biggest mistake," Eliza continued, activating controls on a nearby panel, "was thinking our chattiness was a weakness." On the screens, they could see Earth's defenses engaging the invasion fleet. Concentrated light beams from the solar mirrors struck Vrexian ships, overheating their shields. Disruption signals from Luna Station scrambled their navigation systems. "You've lost," Eliza told them simply. The small transport ship from Earth approached the Vrexian command vessel carefully, using the chaos of the failing invasion as cover. The rescue team, led by Dr. Patel and Rodriguez, monitored their sensors for any sign of Eliza. "There," Rodriguez pointed to a reading. "Human life signs in Sector 7 of the alien vessel." Dr. Patel adjusted their communication system. "Eliza, if you can hear us, we're approaching your location. Can you reach the outer hull section nearest to you?" For a moment, there was no response. Then, a familiar voice came through their speakers. "Took you long enough," Eliza said. "I was getting bored reorganizing their entire database." Dr. Patel smiled in relief. "That's definitely her." "Can you reach docking port 4? Rodriguez asked. "Our scans show it's closest to your position." "Already headed there," Eliza replied. "But you should know I've made some adjustments to this ship. The Vrexians won't be following us." Zextral reached the secondary control room too late. The human was gone, but the screens showed the devastation of his fleet. Half his ships had lost power or were drifting out of formation. Earth's defenses, primitively simple yet devastatingly effective, were picking off the disorganized vessels one by one. "How?" he demanded of no one in particular. "How did one species, one human, do this?" His second-in-command approached cautiously. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They're offering terms." "Terms?" Zextral's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "They say they will allow our damaged ships to retreat if we agree to leave their solar system immediately. The officer hesitated. "They say they have downloaded our entire technological database and will share our weaknesses with other worlds if we ever return." Zextral stared at the screen showing Earth, that blue and green planet that should have been an easy conquest. Now it stood protected, its simple defenses somehow overcoming the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. "Commander," the officer pressed, "what are your orders?" Before Zexatral could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. The main screen shifted to show docking port 4, where a small Earth vessel had attached itself. The human, Eliza, was escaping. "Stop her," Zexatral ordered. "We can't, sir," a technician reported. "All systems in that section are locked down, and—" he paused, checking readings. "There's something else. The human has initiated a program in our main computer. It's spreading through all systems." "What kind of program?" Zexatral demanded. "It appears to be rewriting our translation protocols, changing how we interpret other species' communications." Zexatral felt a cold dread. The Vrexian Empire's expansion had always relied on their ability to monitor and misinterpret other species' communications, to see chattiness as weakness, debate as indecision. If they could no longer do that, "Commander," his officer insisted, "about the Earth's terms?" Zexatral looked at his damaged fleet, his compromised ship, and the small Earth vessel now detaching from their hull with the humans safely aboard. "Except them," he said finally. "Order the retreat." As the rescue ship pulled away from the Vrexian vessel, Eliza watched through a viewport. For the first time in days, she felt the tension leaving her body. "You know," Dr. Patel said. "Earth defense. Command is already calling you a hero," Eliza shrugged. "I just did what anyone would do. Observed, adapted, survived, and saved Earth from alien invasion," Rodriguez added with a grin. Eliza smiled and leaned back in her seat. "I think I'm ready to start talking again," she said. "You wouldn't believe what their ship was like inside. The atmospheric composition was fascinating, and their computer systems had this unusual architecture that actually made them vulnerable to—" As she launched into detailed description, Dr. Patel and Rodriguez exchanged knowing glances. The talkative Eliza they knew was back. But throughout the galaxy, a new respect for humans was just beginning. A species that fought not with overwhelming force but with observation, adaptation, and unexpected strategy. A species whose silence was more dangerous than their words. A species you should never underestimate. 3 months after the failed Vrexian invasion, Earth had changed. Knowledge of alien life and the narrowly avoided conquest had united humanity in ways previously thought impossible. Old conflicts seemed small compared to the vast and sometimes hostile universe beyond their atmosphere. Survey Station Gamma had been rebuilt, larger and better equipped than before. It now served as both a mining operation and an early warning outpost, and at its heart, in a comfortable control room surrounded by the latest technology, Eliza Reeves was back at work. "Sample 342 today," she said into her recorder as she cataloged another asteroid fragment. Higher than average platinum content might be worth a closer look. Her constant chatter filled the station as it always had. But now people actually listened. Every transmission was monitored not just for scientific data, but for the simple reassurance that Eliza was talking, that everything was normal. When she went silent, even briefly, someone always checked in. On Earth, in a special facility built beneath the United Nations headquarters in New York, Commander Chen prepared for an unprecedented diplomatic meeting. Representatives from 17 worlds, former victims of Vrexian conquest, had arrived to meet the species that had defeated their oppressors. "Are you nervous?" Dr. Patel asked as she helped Chen adjust his formal uniform. "A little," he admitted. "I'm a soldier, not a diplomat." "That's why you're perfect for this," she replied. "These species don't need smooth talk. They need to see humanity's strength." The meeting chamber was impressive, a circular room with seats for all delegates and advanced translation systems. In the center stood a single podium where speakers would address the gathering. Chen took his position beside the Earth delegation's table. The main doors opened, and exotic beings from across the galaxy entered. Some walked on multiple legs, others floated on anti-gravity devices. Their forms were diverse, but they shared one common experience: All had suffered under Vrexian rule. Last to enter was the Vrexian ambassador himself, flanked by guards from both his world and Earth. The once proud warrior species now moved with careful restraint, aware that their empire had crumbled in a matter of days. The Secretary-General of the United Nations welcomed everyone and explained the purpose of the gathering: to formalize the liberation of conquered worlds and establish new diplomatic relationships. Then, she introduced the person who would lead the negotiations, Chief Xenotechnology Officer Eliza Reeves. Murmurs spread through the alien delegations as Eliza walked to the central podium. Many had heard stories of the human who went silent, tales that had grown with each retelling until they seemed impossible. Eliza smiled at the assembly. Her confidence had grown in these past months, tempered by experience but strengthened by success. "Distinguished delegates," she began, "I welcome you to Earth not as conquered peoples, but as free worlds and potential allies." As she outlined the proposed treaty, the release of all occupied systems, technological exchange between liberated planets, and a containment agreement for the Vrexian homeworld, the delegates listened with growing approval. "The Vrexians will withdraw to their original solar system," Eliza explained, "and in exchange we will not share the critical vulnerabilities in their technology with other species." The Vrexian ambassador shifted uncomfortably but did not object. His once mighty empire had no choice but to accept these terms. When the formal session ended, delegates mingled in smaller groups, sharing stories of their worlds. Many approached Eliza, curious about the human who had single-handedly turned the tide against their oppressors. Later that evening, in a private meeting room, the Vrexian ambassador requested an audience with Eliza. Commander Chen insisted on being present, standing protectively nearby as the two faced each other. "There is something I must understand," the ambassador said, his translator converting clicks and whistles into smooth English. "How did one unarmed human defeat our most advanced warship? Our military analysts still cannot explain it." Eliza considered the question carefully. It wasn't just professional curiosity. The Vrexians were trying to understand where they had gone so wrong. "You made a fundamental mistake in your assessment of humanity," she said finally. "You monitored our communications and concluded that our constant talking was a weakness, a sign of simple minds." The ambassador's antennae twitched in acknowledgement. "But you misunderstood completely," Eliza continued. "Humans talk because we're constantly processing, sharing, connecting. It's how we solve problems together. It's not a weakness. It's one of our greatest strengths." She leaned forward slightly. "And when we go silent, when all that mental energy turns inward, that's when we're at our most dangerous. That's when you should worry most." The ambassador's compound eyes studied her. "A lesson we learned too late," he admitted. "What will happen to my people now?" "You'll have the chance to rebuild your society, without conquest," Eliza said. "And perhaps in time, rejoin the galactic community as equals rather than conquerors." In the months that followed, Survey Station Gamma became an important diplomatic outpost where representatives from newly liberated worlds came to learn about Earth and its people. Eliza, with her unique experience and approachable nature, became humanity's unofficial ambassador to the stars. Her story spread throughout the galaxy, growing with each retelling until it achieved almost mythical status. On 100 worlds, parents told their children about the human who went silent, and how that silence had changed the course of galactic history. Among spacefaring species, a new saying emerged: "If the humans are talking, listen carefully. If they go silent, run." Back on her station, Eliza continued her work, her voice a constant presence on the communication channels. She talked about asteroid compositions, shared stories from Earth, and sometimes just hummed to herself as she worked. But occasionally, when faced with a particularly challenging problem or when deep in thought, Eliza would fall silent for a few moments. And when she did, everyone, human and alien alike, paid very close attention, because the galaxy had learned an important truth. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. and humanity's silence was something to be respected, and perhaps a little feared. As Eliza often told visiting dignitaries with a smile, "We're at our best when we're talking together, but we're at our most dangerous when we need to focus." It was a lesson the Vrexians had learned too late, a lesson the rest of the galaxy would not forget. The end.